So the Vic at Paul Smith's College.
Butterfly gardens over there. This is where Andy went?
Yeah? Hey guys. Do you know how old this building is?
No idea.
No. Thank you.
Yeah, it was only supposed to be one person or one.
Okay.
No. I'm almost done.
Say that somewhere?
Foyer capacity, one person or family group.
It says it right at eye level.
Please wait outside.
I think you were ahead of us actually.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Come on.
faster. Depends how you count.
Whoa. What is this? You gonna head back to the car? You have the keys? So you start up, get some warmth. See if these guys want to do it. So I'm doing this project, going to New York State parks, asking people if they like to share what they love about nature. And I've been getting very interesting responses to the questions.
Curious about the UR code on the backpack.
You were curious about the UR code, so
It was in case you were lost.
I'm always lost, wandering.
Not lost.
You feel like nature is a member of your family?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Certainly an essential part of our lives.
Essential part of your lives. So like a family member provides food and shelter like nature does.
Yes.
It
It's not
provides a connection to the whole planet, and it's a meditative moment in that sense, because you can, use it to connect with the broader world.
Yeah. Do you feel like your relationship has been growing throughout your life?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you do something a little different, you add on something, you try something different in nature?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it becomes more essential as you grow older.
That's what I've been hearing.
We increase our activities
Excellent.
in nature, we're retired, so certainly the proportion of our lives that we spend out in nature.
Right. So you have more available time to be in places like Paul Smith's Vic Center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is a pretty high-end place for this. In Coney Island a week ago, and Russian women and men are jumping in the ocean. And they're talking about how that resets their brains after they lost a loved one, and
You don't get a heart attack.
they're pretty hardy folk. You don't just do that, right? You got to build up to it.
Yeah.
How do you build up to it?
I'm telling you, it was not.
I'm of Russian descent, so I can call them whatever I want to, right?
It wasn't a onesie deal. I mean, there were a lot of them.
Polar Bear Club.
And they weren't the Polar Bear, because that's a club that does it once. So I asked them those questions, and so it was a really cold Sunday, 2 Sundays ago, and they had the greatest reasonings for it. Pretty much what you were saying on that, but doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You can hop into the sauna immediately after. Maybe.
No, they were coming out in the cold wind.
Coming out the cold wind.
And they were doing things like putting down newspaper when they came out, putting down newspaper, getting water from the ocean, getting the sand off their feet, going through this whole process. This one woman came from Manhattan, 3 hours on a train to do this. Does it twice a week. So she's swearing by her mental health. That's how she gets her mental health. She seemed pretty intelligent lady too. She wasn't like quacky or anything. So how are you going to get closer with nature this year? Do you have any thoughts yet?
We bought a house here.
That's a good answer, right?
I'm still hoping to do a backpack trip, a small one, but
In the hills here?
Because what's very nice is to get to where there's silence.
Yes.
There, and on the one hand, I like where there has never been human activity that changed it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I like the Alps, where everything is sculpted by humanity, but
Yeah.
in harmony with nature, or a garden kind of idea,
Right.
where man improves it, so to speak. And stand is where man has trashed it.
That's a fine line right there. So like this park is reclaiming the wilderness, right? It was wilderness, it got, cut.
Degraded, yeah.
And now it's this, so you can replace it. So that's like these gardens I'm doing attract what I'm calling the queen bee that wants to take a place that's completely denuded, like a mall parking lot, and use the landscape people in that area to build what I've done already. Like logs down, forest floor. So the dramatic thing is if you're in a cityscape and you make a turn and you're in this, it hits you.
Yeah.
So from your new home, is there a spot where you can sit and look out and just watch it, like stare at it?
Oh
Yes.
gosh, there
So you just stare in the sunrise?
places.
There are a lot of places. That's beautiful.
Stare at. Usually, some kind of bluff overlooking a lake or something.
Awesome. That staring is important, right?
Yeah.
Because you'll get that quiet in your mind, that meditative state.
Right. This is wilder.
There's no water in the Catskills,
Yeah.
and that matters to us.
Yeah, it's a lot of lake life. Do you kayak?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been kayaking.
Discovered this place, kayaking and
Yeah.
camping at Fish Creek.
Yeah, it's the kayak heaven, this place.
It is.
I mean, if you're into portaging, it's insane, but I'm not. But quiet water, motorless lakes. Yeah.
The motorless lake.
You have a nice long kayak that just like glides on that thing?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
We have a sea kayak,
Yeah, so
which is a little weird around here.
no, I have a sea kayak. Valley, I don't know, it's a British kayak, mine.
I know Valley.
21-foot green, stealthy fiberglass. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And
You're-
we're in a system,
You're really plugged in when you're in that thing.
17 and a half.
But we want to get a hornback or something that's, one of those
Super light.
ones
Yeah,
that
super
you
light.
portage.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, once you're into portage, man, sky's the limit.
Something else, my favorite, it's just, you could do it now. If you come when it's colder and the lake is frozen.
Yeah, I was hoping for that.
Across a little lake clear.
Huh.
St.
And
Regis Pond.
If
St.
you go
Regis.
to 7 carries,
Yes.
it starts here
Okay.
and it ends up by Lake Clear.
Okay.
Do it in reverse on skis.
Ooh,
Haven't tried that yet.
that sounds
We're thinking of
awesome.
doing it.
Yeah.
Thinking
We've done
doing
it by kayak.
And there's the Fish Pond Trail, ski trail, which is cool. It goes up to Fish Pond.
There was a thaw, right? In Christmas, you guys had a thaw up here, and
Yes, everything. It rained cold, so some of the lakes are frozen.
yeah,
Ish, but
there were people on Kobe.
yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
And that looks good.
Yeah, I don't know, not me.
We were skiing the other day on Osita.
Yeah,
Cross country skiing.
cross country. And as long as you stay in many of these lakes.
Yeah, stay on the perimeter.
Yeah.
No.
No,
Not too
Never.
close.
really, the
Never go
perimeter?
near the
But
perimeter
certainly stay
or
out of the channel and the river.
Why not the perimeter?
It's the ice is
Stay away
thinnest
from
there.
where the reeds are.
Really, the ice is the thinnest at the sides. Well, that makes
I
sense.
know by bitter experience because I thought the same way.
So what do you? So do you
and
go
I
like
fell in.
10 feet in, or how far in?
Yeah.
And somebody gave me good advice if you do fall in.
What's that?
Stick your glove in the water, get
Yeah.
it nice and wet, then press
Ah,
the ice
it'll
over the
grip.
stick.
I like
And
that.
then you can pull yourself out, but you should go on a lake without those picks. You get these 2 little picks in your backpack
Okay.
because the problem is getting out.
Right, is to get a
Get
grip.
yourself up,
Right, to gather yourself.
And
up
since
on,
you have
back
a
on
sea
the ice.
kayak, you probably have a throw rope, which is another good thing to carry.
And a float, something that you can, that someone can throw to you without, your rescuer cannot come close to you.
Well, I really appreciate it, guys. I feel you're at oneness. It's great.
Good luck.
Thank you. Have a great one. It's a butterfly house. The butterfly house in the dead of winter. What do we got? Hi. If you had a second doing this project, going to parks in New York State, asking people what they love about nature. And
Everything, I guess.
everything is the first thought.
Yeah. in one sense, pretty fortunate to be living in an area where, by and large, I can get out there and there's no people around. I don't necessarily have to have my face covered all the time.
It's nice.
In terms of the nature thing, I mean, I guess that's one of the reasons why I live in the Adirondacks.
Right.
To take advantage of the opportunity to get out there. Take it a little bit for granted.
Do you?
I suppose my access to it.
Yeah, I guess we all do to a certain degree, even people that are really plugged in, because it's so magical. We can only really understand kind of that surface.
Yeah, it's one of those things I never feel like an overwhelming desire to buy waterfront property or something, because living here, there's just so much more access. And I take advantage of a lot of the wilderness canoe areas.
Nice.
Used to ski a lot more backcountry. Nowadays, I just like to, it's not so sticky.
yeah, getting those are great.
Yeah, I kind of like head into areas like the Vic where I've been coming at for years now, and nicely groomed. You can get off the groomed stuff here and there if you want to, if you wanted to climb up Jenkins or something. It's well maintained, and I realize the effects of climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And certain areas that are overdeveloped. Far within the park here, and I was from the Champlain Valley also, and I love several of the parks down here, like Point Rush or Mount Trembleau or Split Rock in the Champlain Valley. And I think New York State has made a very good investment.
Yeah.
In terms of keeping large swaths of land protected. Particularly if I look at the Champlain Valley, you have 800 acres here, 1,000 acres here, 3,000 acres here, right along Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
And if you go to Vermont, there's really no sort of public access like that.
Yeah, this was forethought quite a while ago.
Yeah, so I appreciate it. I love that the more land that they can get a hold of, the better. Generally, is the way I look at it.
Yeah.
And I've traveled a bit around the world, and I appreciate what sort of access I can get to here without hiring guides, etc. And there's just a heck of a lot of it that's been put away, at least in the North Country.
It sounds like you're appreciating it pretty well.
Well, I do. Yeah, and I don't want to see it go away. I'm not oohing and ahhing like I used to as a kid or anything like that.
Yeah.
Well, certainly you can appreciate the change of seasons, and the woods is not a monoculture.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of ingredients to make what it is. But I also realize, too, I think that there's a bit of a misnomer that before Europeans got here, that this land was just absolutely left alone.
I know.
Pristine. The natives worked it pretty vigorously.
Hunted it,
but also burned a heck of a lot of it at a time.
Oh, to farm. Yeah.
When the Pilgrims landed, it wasn't some sort of just woods up to the shoreline. There was a lot of land that had been cleared for villages and agricultural space. They do know that a lot of the reasons why, for instance, I think Massasoit wanted to develop some sort of relationship with the Puritans was because of threats from other natives in the area, because they had been decimated so much.
Allies.
So they were trying to look for different alliances. But in terms of, and that, I think you can go all the way across. I read a very interesting book called 1491.
Okay.
Mann was his name, and he kind of just up and down the Western Hemisphere. Very interesting. I think a lot of it is considered more factual now. Some of it is a little bit more theorizing, but much broader, greater population than there was originally thought of. The land was used in many different ways in order to provide, a certain pristine nature, but also, like I say, when they would burn forests, they would burn forests.
Yeah, these are human beings, right?
Well, but it was purposeful.
Yeah.
It was to the idea of, okay, we're either maybe burning an area to help clear it, but also because of the idea they understood
the soil,
the way that regrowth generates a lot of feed for the year and other critters, for instance. It's interesting how up here with the DEC, a lot of it is pretty hands-off. They want to keep it in a particular state, and I'm generally in favor of that.
Yeah.
But I remember going down south, and I had some friends that were doing their doctoral work in ornithology.
Right.
Off the coast of South Carolina, in a great
It's a beautiful spot.
wildlife preserve.
All those sand barrier beaches, yeah.
Yeah, and it was mostly, I mean, this had been a place that had been developed by a former owner of the Red Sox decades ago. I can't remember his name. But he had a lot of what was the equivalent of the South Carolina DEC working out there. And, you know, it's very different strategy down there. They don't hesitate burning off undergrowth in a lot of different areas for the express purpose of what they believe to be better habitat growth for deer, turkey, et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, it is a natural process.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and if there are fires out there and they're let go, I mean, that stuff happens. This guy, Man, who I read in this 1491, I recommend it.
Yeah, it sounds good. 1481.
Yeah, it was a great book. And he, in the Amazonia region, he was mapping out different areas, and there are a lot of anthropologists that were doing the same, where they were looking into this thing where they thought that there were actually soils being developed by native peoples down there.
Yeah.
I wish I could think of what he'd call it, Priata or something like this.
I mean, soil is the answer, right? I mean, it's the big, even for, you know, sequestering carbon.
Well, and with that, they haven't figured out exactly how they did develop it. They've been able to conclude, they think, that there were essentially orchards that were developed, certain plantings.
Which fruit grew bigger?
Yeah, fruit-bearing trees, et cetera, that would go from Amazonia all the way up through, you know, the Mexican rainforest.
Well, yeah. You know, they had the time. That was the focus. I always like to go back to, like, the first 50,000 generations of us were in nature, on nature, directly connected. You and I wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be making sure nothing was coming up on us. Yeah. You know, we'd be very careful what was going on behind that bush.
Sure.
So now we're not. And then so the last 500 generations, we've been off the farm.
Yeah.
So we've been completely disconnected. If you're not on a farm, you're just getting it at the grocery store.
Right.
So the people you're talking about, they had a keen sense of how big the fruit was when they used this soil versus that soil.
But it was also, I mean, they had a key sense of how they could manipulate it to the favor, to
that produce,
both, to enhance nature, but also to enhance their own humanity.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I hear things like everything was pristine, it was never touched.
Yeah, it's fantasy.
No, it was manipulated.
Yeah, buffalo going off of cliffs, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, they're going to be able to eat all of that.
No. And again, I always try to remember, you know, human beings have a lot of common traits, and you got your good ones and your less good ones.
Well, and even when you were talking about the cityscape, you know, I think it's very interesting in terms of urban development now, in terms of providing green space.
Yeah.
In terms of providing
little pockets
growth, in terms of vegetables that are grown locally.
The High Line.
In terms of the idea of using less carbon because you're not in your car every time you turn around.
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot of argument with the idea that actually that is where people
centralized
in the modern era should be.
Right. Unless, you know, my favorite person on earth is Elon Musk. So when those batteries get efficient enough and we can decentralize and you're literally using the sun to power your rig, then you can live anywhere.
Yeah.
And have a very low, you know, footprint.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I like to travel internationally, and you know, a lot of people. There's a big movement afoot that like, oh, you really shouldn't hop on planes anymore. So I feel kind of guilty now if I'm going to be flying around halfway around the world.
Yeah, planes do use the juice.
They do use the juice. They have some sort of battery powered.
That I follow him closely, and you know, he's like, anything's possible unless physics proves that it can't be possible. So when he talks about what it would take to make a plane, you know, electrically, so he talks more about rockets going from here to there in no time and using less energy that way. But, you know, it's Elon Musk, right? So.
Well, I mean, of course, they have had solar panel powered.
Yeah, that went around the world. Yeah. Super light, very dangerous, and they were constantly looking for those storms.
And I'm guiltily, I mean, I still got a few things on my bucket list in terms of,
you know, the thing is, you have, it's balance, right? You know, we're using these cars because this is what was available, and the technology got us this far. We see all the warning signs, and there are a lot of people, you know, trying to correct it. This project is more about sustaining ourselves, really trying to understand how we need to connect better. And up here, it's like, you know, you're teaching me, and when I go down there, people are teaching me, and they're teaching me from different perspectives, which is really interesting.
Yeah. What's the final product going to be, do you think?
So what I'm doing?
Yes.
What I want to do is show landscapers that, you know, it doesn't have to be lawns and bushes and manicured space. So I've already proven that, but I want to know, and only a few people know it, locally.
Well, you're seeing more and more of it.
Yeah, like all the xeriscapes, if you're in the desert, you have to because you don't have the hydration.
Right. A couple houses down from where I live, right in the middle of the village, that, she purposely planted flowering plants. Instead of growing grass.
So it's not like a forest floor. It's
not something that
meadow.
she has to manicure.
So I'm trying to visualize it, yeah.
I think that what she had done, I'd never really seen her. She might go out and clip some flowers here, but I've never really seen her really doing any extensive pruning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that they're all largely wild plants. It's not like domestic roses or something like this. And I think that, and I know once in a while you'll go buy a piece of property like that. In Plattsburgh, I know that there's some people that have done it too, but it's just, native species. I imagine every once in a while she might be out there cutting back.
Keep the paths open.
Yeah.
So what's your take on squirrels?
Well, I don't have a whole big take on squirrels.
Are they?
I often comment when I see a certain species that's getting more common. I often kind of joke, they're like squirrels. They're all over the place.
So you have gray, you have black?
I have gray, black. I think gray and black are the same species.
They're mixed, yeah.
And I've noticed more black, or at least I was for a while, just up in my neighborhood.
Okay.
Not so much out here in the woods.
Yeah, because they're all spread out.
But I noticed in Saranac Lake, I lived up in French Hill area, I was noticing quite a few black squirrels where I hadn't noticed it before. Red squirrels were around too.
Red squirrels. The milder winters, I think, are helping them a little bit along. And the reason I asked that question, there's a meaning behind it, is that it's
just a melanin thing, right?
The color, yeah,
between the black and the gray.
in the fur. The only mammal that we were put up with in keeping in where we live.
Oh, I see.
That's why. And so when someone says, I hate the squirrels because, I'm like, well, let's talk about that because it's the last one.
I don't hate squirrels by any means. I don't want them roaming around my living room. But,
No, right. Balance.
I mean, I've seen some things that are. I remember one time I saw this gray squirrel. I don't know, mom or dad. I'm not sure what their family life is like.
Oh, they're very family oriented.
Yeah.
They stay together. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure if they both share in terms of the responsibility that they do stay together. So it could have been a male or a female, but it was on top of the fence. It was going to, hop up to this tree, and the younger squirrel just couldn't quite make it up to this branch.
Right.
So the parent squirrel grabbed it.
Wow.
Stuffed it in. And I mean, it had to have been it was at least half the size of the adult squirrel, but I'm thinking maybe a little bit more. And just
did it
off the top of that fence.
Isn't that incredible?
Off to like a branch that had to be 15 feet away or something.
Agility.
And then just boom, boom, boom. And I saw it go down several trees with this youngster in its mouth. And I was amazed at that. I was like, wow.
And you're also...
That is strong.
and also, you're doing the act of noticing, right?
Yeah.
That's all. That's what we need to be doing. That's the bottom line, right there.
Yeah.
Noticing it, Yeah. So that's great. So two last two. So do you feel like your relationship with nature has been growing throughout your life?
Well, I mean, I've always had a childhood fantasy was to be a zoologist. So
Oh, cool.
Had an interest
As a kid.
It wasn't really until I got to be a younger adult that I had the wherewithal and the motor transportation to get out into places
Deeper
like this.
areas like this.
It's pretty close to it.
Yeah, you take that for granted. I do sometimes think, how come there aren't people up here? It costs money to get up here.
Yeah. I was just raised in Plattsburgh. I was right on the edge. But again, I was a kid. My parents sort of stuff. I had to be able to hop into my own vehicle or a friend's vehicle to be able to do that stuff and really start getting into it.
Yeah.
And again, now I guess I think there's not so much ooh and ah. I definitely appreciate all the parks in the country that I've been in internationally, and wherever I travel, whether it's into the Western world or into the second or third world, I try to get into wilderness areas.
It's fantastic.
So that's always kind of on my agenda as much as I can.
So I think you just answered the last question is, how are you going to get closer to nature this year? New and creative ways.
Well, I don't really know. I can't think.
Well, think about it. This is like a mutual thing, right? So what you're telling me, and after I look at what we talked about, 23 locations probably spoke to maybe over 100 people already.
Yeah, right.
And it's pretty great because this in common thing we have. There's no division here.
Yeah. In terms of how I can appreciate it more than I do already.
Well, the next thing, like I just put maple syrup. So I had a glass of ice water at the restaurant, drank the water, and I'm thinking like and I poured the maple syrup on the ice. Now I've never done that before, and drank the.
Do it all the time as a kid.
Yeah, right. So but I've never done it before. So then I felt closer to nature because I'm thinking the maple trees, maple syrup, ice,
Yeah.
the connection. Why is it making my natural tongue so happy?
Right.
You know, so I think you could have the oohs and ahs if you just get into that next layer of the nature of nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something that I'm always interested in. I'm not a scientist by any means. Kind of know a little bit here and there. Sometimes when I think that I know a little bit here and there, I'm often embarrassed by people that know a heck of a lot more.
Well, that's it. Hey, man, that's great. You know you don't know.
But,
That's wise.
well, yeah, don't go that far.
Knowing when you're not knowing is key, I think, right?
And I can say that about anything in life as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I've never been that type of person that always figures that I know exactly what I'm doing, I know what's going, and how I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
Everything is can be up in the air.
It's an adventure. It's a journey. It's right. And being flexible. And that's how my wife is waiting for me in that car there.
Oh, jeez.
And that's how we do it. You know, like we do our little vacation or getaway. And then we pick these spots. I was going to do a lot of lake stuff, but they're not frozen yet. So I'm going to come back in February. And I want to get on the lake and talk to the guys ice fishing, which I've never done, but I want to ask them.
Well, if you go back into Saranac Lake, there are people on Colby right now.
Yeah, I saw the people on Colby.
Yeah, that place is fished like crazy.
Is that freezing because it's shallow? Why is that harder than...
No, it's not a huge space. It's not
I was wondering why that one...
affected by wind or current. As a matter of fact, I don't know if there's much of any inlet in or out. The place is stocked easy every year because I don't think the population fished can really sustain that type of fishing. I can't be quoted on that.
So the DEC is stocking it?
DEC stocks it like crazy.
Right.
And the DEC will stock different areas.
Yeah.
Sometimes the DEC has gone so far as to kill off any life that goes on in the lake.
There's good and bad with the DEC, as we all know.
Yeah, and people either for that or against it. Certainly, fishermen like the idea to put in heritage strains. I don't know if the loons make, they're not, their palate isn't, and that they're going to spit out trout.
Right, only very picky loons.
Right.
What's the deal with the moose crossing signs? Are there really moose up here?
There are.
Really? Have you seen a moose?
I haven't seen a moose.
Has anyone you know seen a moose? Yeah? Oh, cool. Well, there you go.
I haven't. That's one of the. I've seen moose.
I would die to see a moose,
In a lot of
man.
different places.
Oh, have you? How close were you to a moose?
Well, I don't know. Pretty close. But it was a good thing that there was a rushing stream in between us. But there was a cow and a calf.
Oh, boy.
But I hear various estimates. They used to talk about when they were coming up and they seemed to be staying a certain number, that there would be some sort of exponential growth. I hear numbers anywhere from 500 to 1,000 sort of.
In the park?
That seems to be. Yeah.
Wow.
Sort of, but that's a wide range. I used to hear like 800 to 1,200 or something, but not long ago, I was hearing numbers that were maybe a little more lower.
Okay. So they must have...
But yeah, there is a population. It's not huge.
Right.
Area actually, kind of going up Route 30, I think you'll see some signs, and there's a steadier moose population there. And there are other areas in the park that seem to have a more significant population than others. But I know that go back and forth. I have a sister that has a camp on Point of Rush in northern Lake Champlain. There was a moose on her property. And they can cover a lot of ground that way.
Yeah, so the vegetation is a big player in that, like what they're looking for.
Of course, yeah, I would think. Yeah. Mating can be a different thing too.
Feeling safe, not hearing roads.
Yeah, and I think, I have no idea what the steady cow population is here. That may have something to do. Not huge spike in growth.
In growth, yeah.
Vermont, certainly has a pretty steady population. They have a lottery hunting system there still, I believe, still in effect.
Is that where they're coming from, or were they reintroduced?
I think that, no, they weren't reintroduced.
No.
They used to talk about that.
And wolves were not reintroduced.
Wolves were not reintroduced, but that is also very interesting. I used to be like a big sort of, I guess, kind of a proponent of that.
Love the wolf.
But then, the more that I looked into it, and the more research that they've done lately.
Yeah.
The critter that's here now, I hear scientists calling it a coy wolf.
Oh, right, the hybrid.
It's a hybrid, but it's also not. Most people figure now that with the studies that they've done, the route that they often commonly refer to is kind of like going out of the West and the Midwest and cutting through southern Ontario through places like Algonquin Provincial Park, where there's a steady wolf population there. But they started doing DNA samples, with the coy wolves and with Algonquin Park wolves, et cetera, and then they started matching them up with red wolves.
Okay.
Which was they always thought was like a separate population, a remnant population that still exists in some small preserve, very guarded, fenced-in areas.
Okay.
In the southeast, essentially the red wolf.
Yeah.
In the southeast, which is not a timber wolf.
Right.
It's not as big. And those wolves that were up in Algonquin Provincial Park were essentially the same.
Huh.
They're kind of the same thing, maybe a subspecies thing or something, but they weren't timber wolves. They would not grow to that size. So when I was reading stuff like that, and then you get, and even before that, I remember reading a New York State conservationist article by some DEC biologist that he was claiming that the wolf that's been here, or the coyotes that are here, they were calling them coyotes at the time, or coyotes.
Right.
I call them coy wolves now. He had said it, and it was based on bounties and skull sizes, et cetera. So he said, that's the critter that's here now is a critter that's always been here. And he was going back into the 18th century records largely. But then when you see that with that crossover and the genetic studies that they were doing, either out of the States or in Ontario, that they were really seeing this mix, and it isn't, and I've seen coy wolves here, and they're not the same. They're much bigger than coyotes that I see out west or anything like that. But it was very interesting to see that many scientists are coming to the conclusion that timber wolves east of the Mississippi and south, into southern Canada, southern Quebec,
right,
and not up into northern Minnesota, Michigan, and all that area, were probably all maybe that sort of a red wolf species. They weren't really quite as big as the timber wolves.
Okay.
A lot of speculation about that.
Yeah.
So, hearing that, I was going to, and they're talking about, because you used to have Defenders of Wildlife would come and do talks.
Yep.
And, they'd have the wolves and everything, and it was great, and all
Yep.
that. But when you hear that that's the case, and then you also hear that the coy wolves here, take down a good number of deer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, doing that job.
And you're going, wow, and then they're talking about, with the timber wolves really here, maybe it was a red wolf that was kind of all the way up and down here. I'm going, well, it's not a reintroduction. And then you're talking about an introduction.
That's what you don't want.
And you don't want that.
Yeah, you really have to be careful when we do the man curing thing. It's like...
Right. And if there's a species that somehow, through inbreeding with wolves and what have you, that comes in and they're taking that place.
Right, doing
as one of the apex predators.
Doing the deer the right thing.
Right, and if nature's doing it on its own.
Yeah, no, then you're hands off.
Mess with it.
Hands off. All right, that's something I could look into. I really appreciate that information.
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not full of shit, but.
No, I don't think you're full of shit. A lot of it rings true from what I know.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've really paid much attention.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was pretty on it. I saw a mission wolf. I couldn't believe my eyes. That was incredible. Yeah. They brought them in at an environmental thing we're at, and just long story short, so it was all environmentalists and the staff that were keeping us fed, and the woman that was waiting on us was a Native American, and we said, you have to come at the end of this, on the third day, they're bringing in the mission wolves, and she talked a little bit about her people and the wolves. So so there's about 100 people in a circle in this room, like 15, 20 years ago, and they said, don't be afraid if a wolf comes up to you. They'll only come up to you if they feel very, calm with you, comfortable with you. But that wolf walked right up to that girl.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody else, that girl.
Yeah.
And I was like, I knew I love wolves. I just, brought the wisdom notch up.
Yeah.
Great stuff, right?
Yeah.
The people were tearing up in that place because they knew who she wasn't one of us, but more credentials.
And the wolf wasn't the pet husky down the street.
This is no pet, no. But the mission wolves, are trying to help with the understanding of the wolf and so forth and so on.
So the way I look at it that way, at first.
Yeah, it's a healthy way to look at it.
Sometimes they can pack up into larger groups, not just nuclear family groups.
Uh-huh.
They just act more like like wolves, not like western coyotes.
Right. You hear them screaming?
On occasion, even in my house.
It's pretty amazing, huh?
I can hear them, yeah. A lot of yipping and yapping, and
Some of that is like amazing to me. It's like bone-chilling sounds.
yeah. I mean, I think it's a great sound.
Oh, I love it.
I've never been.
I don't mind my bones getting a little
Yeah.
shaken. I'm in the house, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's one of the things I think I like about the wilderness here too. When I go out in the woods, you know, there isn't a critter around here that I'm afraid of.
that's good.
You know,
Big-
like I say, if you perchance, walking between a cow and a calf,
Yeah.
well, that's highly unlikely.
So you go backwards.
Or the same thing with a sow, bear, and a cub, and
Right.
all that. But that's,
Right.
I've seen sow bears with their cubs, and I'm not in between them, and it hasn't been a problem. It's not like I have to worry about if I'm jogging through the woods and some panther is stalking me or
No,
something.
right, like what we were talking about before, right?
Although that's something I've known, I know people that know their critters that
Mountain lions?
have sworn that they've seen mountain lions.
Oh, my hunter friends tell me they're up in a tree and they have deers like locked in, and then they start hearing deers making sounds they never heard before. And he said he looks down the bottom of his tree and there's a cat looking up at him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like, whoa. I got a chill just remember him telling the story. I'm like, whoa, that must be bad looking.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, because they can get up that tree in no time.
Yeah. I know. Well, of course, they can climb too, but I don't think that there's been any official from the DEC themselves who has ever said that I can verify that yes, they are here. It's very speculative.
There's a pride or something going.
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be.
I wonder if they have any of the moose, tracking any of the moose.
They have.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They put collars.
Okay.
So I know that.
Well, that's good.
There were a lot of other critters, I mean, the populations here of, deer, geez, that's what I always say. Deer are like squirrels. You used to not see.
They eat a little less vegetation, though, than the squirrels.
Yeah.
The squirrels are planting.
They're in my yard, I mean, they're in the village. You want to see deer in a lot of areas, say in Saranac, not Saranac Lake, but in that area is very rare.
Oh,
But nowadays, the sightings are much more common. The deer population,
yeah.
I'm not going to swear by it, but it seems to me, and I think most people, that it's a pretty healthy thing. The bear population is very healthy. Populations and what have you are very healthy. So any efforts that have been made to preserve things, I think, have been successful. But all these critters up here too. This is an area where it's not like a national park where you can't hunt.
No, but I was just thinking
All over the place.
the big difference here is you're not continually displacing.
No.
So you're not building, because of the Forever Wild, you're not building in a big part of this.
Yeah.
So you hear like in New Jersey when they put up 5 developments and all of a sudden, the deers are running every which way.
Yeah.
So there's none of that displacement going on.
No, but they're running every which way up in my neighborhood.
Well, this is always a good place to go, so why would we not go here?
People don't generally complain about them unless they're eating in their garden or something.
Yeah, right, the bulbs.
To have a garden, we'll protect it with fencing and stuff. But I think like the deer in my neighborhood got a pretty good life.
That's great.
Between where, say, where I am over towards Dewey Mountain in that area or something, and nobody's really hunting them.
Right.
By and large, unless they range too far out. Of course, I love it that I can, if I get up early enough, or a lot of times in the middle of the day, there'd be a deer.
Yeah, it's great.
House or across the street or something like
A
that.
calming thing to see. I also love that line that they do their trim. So when you're on the lake and you see like the hedge line, you're like, how does that get like that? Well, that's deer, man. That's as high as they can eat,
Just browsing away.
It's a beautiful line they make from a landscaping perspective. Well, listen, you've been absolutely wonderful.
Well, I
You really have.
appreciate it. I kind of got.
No, it's all good. If you want to scan my QR code and see what other people are saying, fine. If not, all good.
There it goes, yeah.
Your credentials, or you're right here, right now.
Have a good one.
Yes,
and
be well.
enjoy the rest of your travels around.
Happy, healthy.
Yeah, same to you.
Thanks. You're not cold?
I fell asleep. I just woke up.
Oh my God. So obviously we needed to come here. People are so good. They so want to get involved in this. It's so great.